So you see this dynamic, right, in both countries. In the U.S., the Labor Party, in the U.S., the Democrats enable the Republicans, and in the UK, the Labour Party enable the Tories. They pretend to oppose each other, but there's no real opposition. These people, they went to school with each other. They're good pals. They're friends. And when it comes down to it, you look at how they vote, and you will see that there is no opposition. I can just tell you, in the UK, for example, the Labour Party did nothing to block this spy cops bill, where undercover police can do torture, kill, rape, murder, people as part of their missions. They did nothing to oppose this overseas operations bill, which gives British troops immunity from war crimes prosecutions. So if you're a British soldier and you committed a war crime and it's been 5 years, you can't be prosecuted anymore for that war crime. And then of course there's the spy cops. The police courts sentencing and crime bill, which is it's basically the bill that's at the center of the protests in the UK, the Kill the Bill protests, where they're basically letting police shut down a protest on the spot because you're too noisy. And even if it's one person, they can do it even if it's one person who's being a nuisance. A nuisance? Like, define a nuisance. A protest is supposed to be some sort of an inconvenience, many people would argue. So that defeats the entire point of a protest. And then, of course, there's this legislation where the Home Secretary, Priti Patel, can strip people of their nationality without even telling them. Like, the Labour Party has done nothing to oppose any of this. Nothing at all. And I don't need to remind you that Tony Blair, Labour PM, started the war in Iraq. So you really see how their policies align most of the time. And then, of course, in the U.S., the Democrats, they go on and say nothing about the wars, nothing about the sanctions. It's all hush. Even those so-called progressives, they don't really care. They don't give a crap. And when it comes to supporting Israel, that it's bipartisan, 100%. When it comes to sanctions, bipartisan, 100%. When it comes to war, bipartisan, 100%. Look how they vote. Look how they vote, even the so-called squad. Their voting does not match what's coming out of their mouths at all. So, do you have a real opposition in the UK? No. Do you have a real opposition in the US? No. And even the people who do pose some sort of threat to the establishment, no matter how minuscule, whether it's Bernie Sanders or Jeremy Corbyn, who's, leagues better, they get chased out of the party, right? So, they screwed Bernie in the election 2 times. And then Jeremy Corbyn, of course, who's arguably much better all around. He gets called an anti-Semite for standing with Palestinians and, just suspended. They took the whip from him, just neutered him, basically. Just completely shameless what they do to stifle any sort of true left. So you end up with 2 parties, that are serving this neoconservative, neoliberal agenda. And you have no actual opposition. You have no legitimate, substantive people's movement in either house, whether we're talking about the Parliament or the U.S. Congress. And so, when we talk about the establishment, that's what we mean. That's what we mean. You can't get into these parties and then change them from within. This is laughable. People have tried that in the U.S. in the 30s. You get co-opted, they crush it. It's like getting a nun to join Hell's Angels and convert everyone to Christianity. It's not going to happen. They're going to, the Hell's Angels will likely influence the nun more than the other way around, unfortunately, and so it's the same thing here. You join this party, many of these people started with they sounded good, they looked good, but, once they're in there for a year or 2, you see where they lean, especially if you're talking about the squad. It's just everything they ran on, they don't vote for. $15 minimum wage, they voted for the omnibus that didn't have it, that got it removed in the Senate. They let Israel get its $3.8 billion a year to kill Palestinians. There's no substantive critique or opposition to sanctions or war. They're kind of just like okay with it. They'll say, oh yeah, this is bad. And then you ask them about Venezuela and they're like, oh yeah, well, the Maduro government, just like CNN talking points about global South countries, the same nonsense. So they don't really take a stance against war. And of course, voting for Nancy Pelosi, Nancy Pelosi refused to impeach Bush. Like, she even said that in 2019. I covered it here. She She knew that he was lying about WMDs. She says that herself. She says that she knew there was no evidence of WMDs, and she still refused to impeach him, right? But she'll refuse. She'll impeach Trump for something that is, like, she won't impeach Trump for attacking Iran, for abusing his office, violating the War Powers 1973 War Powers Resolution, and trying to start wars everywhere, assassinating foreign generals. No, she'll do it over some bullshit with Ukraine, right? Like there's no real opposition at all when it comes to all things empire. When it comes to all things corporate, they're in full alignment with each other, completely. Whether it's whether it's in the UK or the US, on both sides of the Atlantic.